Hey everyone, it's Marie, and today I'm going to be sharing how I'm using this little 2x3 stamp set from Brutus Monroe to create some fun shaker tags. Now I have one here that I've already done. I'm just going to be sort of copying this little model to make another one in more of a masculine color scheme. You can see here it's a little bit pastel, a little girly, so I wanted to make one just to show how you can do sort of a feminine and a masculine type card. I'm using these little small mixed media tags from Brutus Monroe, and then I've stamped out the donuts and I'm just going to be coloring them in. Now I've sped this up a bit because it does take a little bit of time to get all your coloring done. I'm using my Prismacolor color pencils, and I'm just using a few shades of brown, and then I'm going to be doing some fun bright colors for the frosting. So I went ahead and I used my lightest shade of brown and just put a light coat down using a really light hand. I went in and I put a bit darker of a shade of brown just to add some shading. And for my darkest shade, I actually used just a bit of black, and I just put a tiny bit around where it would be darkest. And then I usually go back and just sort of blend those out using the same colors and just building up those layers of color. Now colored pencils, there's a few different ways you can blend. Most of the time I kind of like to just build up the color, layer on the color, and sort of blend out those colors that way. But I know you can also use Gamsol or a blender pencil or some different things. I just find that it's easiest for me to use some coordinating colors and just work at it and blend them together. Now for the frosting, I'm using sort of a yellow and red and orange type theme. So I'm putting down my lightest color, which is a yellow, coming in with a yellowish orange and adding some shading. And then I'll add a little bit more darker color using red just to add a little bit more shading. I'm not being careful about coloring around the sprinkles on top. I found that it's a little bit faster for me just to go ahead and color over them. And as I'm done coloring, I'm going to come back in with a white gel pen and just fill in those sprinkles, and it's going to give it just a brighter look. And so I'm not really worried about my coloring over those sprinkles. So I'm just coming back out and I'm blending on all those colors together with my lightest shade. And here's my white gel pen. Like I said, I'm just going in and I'm filling in all of those sprinkles. I really like using a white gel pen when I'm doing my coloring because it adds a little bit of detail and it kind of makes the colors pop. So I really like when I'm doing alcohol markers or colored pencils, I always have a white gel pen on me. Now these other two donuts, I'm doing something a little bit different. I colored them with some colored pencils, and then I'm also going to go ahead and put some of this Nouveau drops on the frosting. I thought it would be kind of cute to sort of fill in the frosting with these Nouveau drops, and so it would dry a little bit dimensional and a little bit shiny and look like some glossy frosting. So I'm using pink here for this one. I'll use white for my next one. And you may have noticed I squeezed out my bottle onto a piece of scrap paper first. This is always a good idea because my Nouveau drops they clog in the nozzle sometimes. And so when I really squeeze hard, if I'm doing it on my paper, I don't want to risk getting a big blob on the image I'm coloring. So I like to squeeze it out on a piece of scratch paper first. So I've almost got these all filled in, and then I'll just set these aside to dry, and then I'll just have some cute donuts with some glossy frosting. So for the background on my tags, I'm going to be using a few different colors of surface ink, and I'm just taking my surface ink and dragging it across the tag, and then in between each color I'm going to go ahead and dry it so they don't mix too much. The first one I used was Jack-o'-lantern, which is a nice orange color. This one is Zest, and you can see I'm just going to go ahead and drag it right across my tag. I'm kind of trying to overlap the colors a little bit so that they kind of transition from one to another. Now I'm using my mixed media mat on the background, and if you want to kind of clean up your ink between each thing, it's really handy to have this little squeaky clean dispenser. It's kind of like one of those nail polish remover pumps. I just like to put a little bit on my rag and then clean up my background as I'm switching colors so I don't make a big mess on my tag. Now for the next color, I'm using terracotta, which is kind of a brownish red, and I thought it went well with the donut and the different colors that I had used to color it. And for my last color, I'm using wagon, which is just a nice red. So it's if you think of a wagon, that's the color red it is. So to make my shaker part of my tag, I'm taking a little bit of plastic. Now this is just a 12 by 12 protector sleeve. I have a bunch of these and I don't use them. So they work really well with my We Are Memory Keepers fuse tool. I like to make little pockets for my shaker bits, and that's what I'm doing today. I'm just marking out where I need to cut this piece of plastic, and I like to use my straight edge paper trimmer with the plastic. It cuts really nicely, really smoothly, and I've never had problems cutting it with just a paper trimmer like this. So that's how I like to cut it down and size my plastic for my shaker pouches. So if you have any of these plastic pouches laying around, they're great to keep on hand if you want to make shaker pouches. If you also want another really easy way to make shaker cards and such, Brutus Monroe does have pre-made shaker pouches that are so easy to use. I needed one in a specific size, so I'm just going ahead and using some of this plastic. Now I want to show you that in order to get these pen marks off of where I had marked where to cut, I'm just using a little bit more squeaky clean. And I'm just wiping it away and then drying my plastic. It'll clean off my plastic a little bit and get rid of those marker spots, and it works like a charm. So after I have my media mat all wiped up, I'm going to start fusing my little pocket, and I'm using my fuse tool like I had mentioned before. And one thing I really like about this mixed media mat is that it is heat resistant. So I can go ahead and use this fuse tool right on my mat and it doesn't hurt it at all. So when you're using the fuse tool, you really want to let it heat up for a good amount of time. I plugged mine in when I started this project, so it's probably been heating up for about 10 to 15 minutes. Now I'm just using that metal ruler to kind of guide the heat tool, and I'm not going super fast, but I don't want to stay in one place either because that will melt the plastic. So you just want to go kind of slow but keep moving. So I went ahead and I fused my plastic on 3 sides. I left the top open so I could fill it before I fused the last side. And I'm just putting my donut in, and then I'm going to be picking out what kind of sequins or sequin mix that I want to fill my shaker pocket with. So I have some options here. I have some of these bottle cap sequins from Brutus Monroe, and I had a lot in a bunch of different colors, and I think they would have looked really great inside, but I had another shaker mix from Kindred Stamps, and I really liked the colors that was with this mix. I think they really coordinated well with the colors I had picked for the tag, so I went ahead and I used some of those for my pocket. I guess the hardest part for me was just keeping the pocket open so I could fill it. But I just like to open it up and just put a few pinchfuls of my shaker mix inside. I'm also going to be using some of this shimmery copper sort of foil glitter from Martha Stewart. Sometimes I like to use just a little bit of my special shaker mixes and then fill the rest with some glitter that I have a lot of, and that way I can kind of get more use out of those shaker mixes. So it kind of fills it up a little bit more without using up all of my Kindred Stamps shaker mix. Now that I have it filled, I'm going to go back and I'm just going to fuse the last side together the same way I did the other sides. And another thing you might notice about this media mat is that you can see the grids from my craft mat underneath. So I can go ahead and I can line it up perfectly straight and fuse that last side together. So I'm just kind of taking my time. I'm going slow, but not too slow. You don't want to stay in one spot so that it melts the plastic. But this fuse tool is really easy to use. If you've used it a few times, you kind of get the hang of it, and it's great for making shaker tags and shaker cards. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere this pocket down to my tag. I did put a little bit of ATG tape glue onto my tag to stick my pocket down, and then to cover that up, I'm using a little bit of gold washi tape. This tape says treasure every day. I thought it was kind of fun because who doesn't treasure a day with a donut in it? So I went ahead and I put that on, and now I'm just going to add some ribbon on the top. to complete my tag. So as you can see, you can use different colors to sort of make more of a masculine or a feminine tag depending on what you're going for. You could use these, add a little sentiment, put them on gift bags, or just put them on the card front, or anything you'd like to do. Write a little note on the back, but they're so easy to do. So I hope you had fun with this video. Please go ahead and check out the blog post and my links below. Otherwise, thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.